Okay, so what I'm talking about today is structure. Isn't that what I'm talking about today? I think so. So I'm just going to set up a basic building very quickly, just to start off with. So I'm going to set up a rectangular building like this, and what do we do? Yeah, okay, let's just leave it at that. So then I'm just going to put in some grids in the usual way, array them, and we'll make them, let's make 15 of them, and we'll make them 3600 like that. Just going to stretch that to suit. And I'm going to take the grids the other direction. Change this to A. If I can click on it, A. And copy it down again. So we can say, I don't know, 12 the other direction. Shh. So then I'm just going to move these up so that they're, I think what I'll do is I'll move it so that the inside face of the wall is on the grid line. Just for the moment. So I'm just going to drag them out and then back again, and it locks to the grid line like that. And I'll just delete the last one there. So then we've got some kind of a box like that. So this is what we've made. Very impressive. But now we want to set up a structure in here. So the easy way to set up a structure in Revit is to actually use the grids, because the grids are not just lines, they actually have intelligence to them. So you can set up a columns so that they align with the grids automatically. So if I go to column here and say structural column, I can either just, it's set as a glulam column at the moment, but we could change it to, let's change it to concrete column here. I can go and insert it directly on the junction of the grids there. It disappears, and the reason it disappears is because all the columns are automatically set up with a minus offset for some reason. So if you go into 3D view, you see your column has been inserted, but if you click on it and come over here, you can see it's got a base offset of minus 1000. I don't know why that is, but it's always like that. So we need to first of all just set that up. We'll bring it up to the roof level, and then we'll set it to 0. This sometimes causes errors, but anyway, yeah, there you go. So then if I go back into the level plan, the column appears, so the column is there. But often, if you insert it, it disappears and you don't know what's going on. And the reason is that for some reason the default is set up at minus 1000. I don't know why. So that's one way of doing it. We could go around and keep inserting columns, structural columns, on the junctions here all the way through, but we want it to be automated. So I'm going to delete that again. So I'm going to go to column, structural column, and now we have the option over here to say at grid intersection. So I'm just going to click on that, and now we just select all the grid lines that we want a column to be at the grid intersection, and then we press finish. It's telling us none of the created elements are visible in floor plan, and it's for exactly that reason. If I go into 3D view, they're all there, but they're all, you know, dwarfs underground. So I can select one of them, right click, select all instances in project, and we just change the settings up here. We bring it up to roof level, bring it up to 0, and apply. So now the columns are going through the building all the way through. So we've got columns at each at each point. That makes sense? Wait a second, I'll just pause it and I'm going to do it again. I mean, once we have a column in here, once the idea of the column is existing in Revit, we can always select it and change the type just like you can in anything in Revit. We can change it to a steel column if we wanted to. You see, it's changed to a steel column. And we can go and load columns Or what I'm going to talk about later on in the month is how to make your own column types and how to give your own column forms and so on. But I could select all these columns, for example, and change them all to steel HEB 200, like that. So we have a load of steel columns in the project. Oh, look at that. Looks like an art installation. Spooky.
Shane?
Yeah?
Sometimes Revit says that the column is entirely inside the wall and gives you some weird warnings. I mean, what's the workflow?
Okay. So now I've got all these steel columns set up just for the sake of having steel columns, just because they look a bit prettier on the sheet like that. And we want to, let's say, set up beams between these columns. So it's the same process again. I go to the Structure tab. Just check I'm recording this. Yeah. I go into the Structure tab, Beams, and again we can start to draw it, or we can choose on grids, on grid lines like that. And again we can just select all the grid lines if there are beams between all the grid lines, and accept it like that. And it's telling us that again none of them are visible in the floor plan, and that's probably because if you go into the 3D view they're beyond the level of the floor plan. So here they are here. So we've created them all at the ground level. So again, we can select them. Once they're in there, we can select all instances in the project. And let's say we're going to make everything out of steel here, if we have steel. Yeah, so let's make it all out of steel. Maybe I made this building a little bit big. It's taking a while to calculate it. So we have one layer. And then we can select them again. Select all instances in View, and then I'm just going to copy them, and now I'm going to paste them aligned to selected levels. I'm going to put them on the next two levels as well, level 2 and roof. Press OK. This takes a while. Okay, I have been a little bit excessive here. This building's a little bit too big, but anyway. But you get the idea. So it's really quick to set up a beam system. Let's just turn up the transparency here. So that's kind of the basis of how to set up a structural system. If I go into now and take a section, go into level 1. I'm going to take a section through the middle here and open it up.
Is there a difference between structural framing and placing beams?
No. Let's make it 1 to 20. What the hell? So you can see that the beam has been inserted directly at level 2 or directly at roof level or directly at level 1. So in here, if you were building a house, you would probably want to leave a certain amount of play because you're going to need a roof surface. You're not going to dance around between the steel beams on your floor, so or you're going to need a surface of some kind. So if you if you do that, you can give it a vertical offset. So what I'm thinking is that in this case here, you would have probably overlaid your structure on top of you know, an architectural model you've already made. You've already divided it up into, you know, timber floor, some kind of resilient layer, maybe some insulation, some concrete or whatever. So you would treat the structural element as being an element within the concrete there. So you can give it, if I select all instances in View, I can give it a Z offset value, Z being the vertical dimension in geometry. And let's say we want to minus it 50 and apply it.
You did
select all
I just selected all of them in the project.
in the project.
Yeah. So now we've moved the structure to a position where you can get the floor surface and so on.
And what is that value?
Am I going too fast? No answer.
Oh, no,
Just because this thing needs a little bit too low.
Yeah. The level that's shown here, level 1, this is the very, very top level of the top floor surface. It's never, the bottom of the beam or even the top of the beam. It's the top of the floor surface. So you always need to give a certain amount of offset to allow for room for your beautiful beige carpet or something, whatever it is you want to put in your office building here. So that's the way you control it over there. There's some other stuff you can do. Let's just go into 3D view here. Get back out of here a little bit. If I make a beam, for example, let's make a beam here and another beam here. If I select it, let's see what I can do here. I can change the offset level. Let's say 3 meters. Well, let's make it. Actually, let's do it more than that. Let's make it 9 meters. So I've taken one end of the beam and I've changed the offset so it's 9 meters up in the air. And this one here, I'm going to do it. Let's take the start offset and make that. Let's take it minus 6,000. Did that work? Minus 600, minus 6,000. So now I've got two beams at, stupid angles. But what Revit can do is it can actually fill in the area between them. So we can use a beam system. So if I click on the structure tab again, I click on beam system. I can then, we have all the little drawing tools in here, but at this time we're not choosing any of these drawing tools. We're actually going to choose this one here, which is a support. We want to find the support for all this stuff. So I pick the supports. I'm going to click this one, and then I'm going to click this one, and I'm going to click on 3D view. And then I'm just going to try and close the lines this way. And I'm going to close this one. This way. So what it's done is, if I, let's see, this, I'm going to change the spacing of these beams just before I do anything, just so you can see what happens. And just apply that and accept it. It's actually taken the information between the two beams that I put in originally, and it's filled in the information between them. So it's done a spacing of beams based on what we wanted to do. We can always go back and edit it. For example, we've got the beams going in this direction, and that's a function of this line here. So this triple line means that you want the beams in this direction. We can change the direction. Let's say beam direction this way, and accept it. And it does it the other way. So you can actually make quite complex systems quite easy. Then if we say, if we stretch that up here, what does that do? Let's see if that does anything. Yeah, okay, so now it's gone nuts. But anyway, yeah, that's pretty cool as well. This is like an art project. I'm saying I'm going to sell this. So you can kind of play with structural elements to allow you to do kind of fairly complex things quite simple. Yeah.
So is this how you would show a roof, for example, if you want to show the load bearing system?
Yeah. This is one way of doing it. There's another way of doing it that's easier. How much time have I got? Half an hour? Yeah. Okay. But what this does, this allows you to, if, for example, we go into this plan we made earlier, usually you probably don't need so many steel beams holding up a building. If I select these beams here, And I'm just going to filter out the grids. No, what am I doing here? We need to go into 3D view, don't we? Top view. Let's delete these beams here, for example. So usually you might have one large beam or two large beams on two sides, and then you have some smaller beams filling it up in between. That's the normal way of doing things. The larger beams are usually called girders, and the internal beams are just called beams or joists. So if I was to fill this up with, for example, floor joists, this is where I'd use a beam system. So I put a beam system in there. Let's change the spacing to like 600 mils. We'll change the type to, what have we got? Let's say dimension lumber 45 by 195. And then I'm just going to draw. You can either draw it or you can choose the supports. And then I'm going to flip the beam direction so it's going across instead of along. And then accept it. So then it's made a little beam system within the other systems below there. Does that make sense? Getting a lot of blank stares today. Am I going too fast or something? The last thing I'm going to show you regarding this type of system is, I'll just delete that. We're going to level 1. Often you make a framing diagram in 3D, and you need to produce a drawing or a component drawing in order to describe to a carpenter or somebody how to put it together. So the grids are what help you to do that in Revit. So if I wanted to make, for example, I mean this is a very simple one, you might have a complex one. If I wanted to make a framing diagram of this on grid line G here, of all these elements here, I can use the view tool here. Under elevation we've got another option called framing elevation. And the framing elevation is just made to make structural framing drawings. If I press framing elevation, it's asking me at the bottom here, click on a grid or named reference plane. So we have grid set up, so I'm going to click on this grid here, and you can see it's starting to set up an elevation symbol here. I'm going to click on that, elevation 1A. If I go into elevation 1A, it's actually set up a drawing for me that is just about that element. And I can stretch that out as far as I want, or I can just choose one element or whatever. You can see there's something happened in here when I put in the other beam system. What that means is that I can go in here and now I can start to annotate and put in dimensions. Let's say dimensions between here and here and here. No, anyway, that's enough. And ceiling dimensions or whatever in here, and I can start to use tagging. If I go to annotate, and I'm going to go to tag by category. Oh, I don't have a structural tag. I'll talk about tagging another time then. But this is actually where you start to make a diagram for how the actual thing can be constructed. But you can also draw within this elevation. So I can come in here to structure again, and let's say I decide I want to put a bracing between these elements. I can just draw a brace, and I can decide to put it from here up to here, and it's drawn a brace in for me. Now it's a very thick one. It's made of glulam at the moment, so it's probably not going to be a very successful brace. So I can go down here and change it to steel, and you can also go into families and you can set gusset plates and so forth on the edges like that. But you don't need to do that, right? You don't need to do that at all, actually. But it's for more if you get into steel detailing later on. Okay.
But this is like making it like this, it will make it in the project as well, and not only like to show it.
Yeah, exactly. It's okay. I think what I'll do is, that's quite a lot of stuff, so you can play with that forever. But the one thing I want you to do is download this Revit extension here, which is called Wood Framing Walls, Rafter Framing and Roof Trusses. Because it actually is a bit useful. I didn't used to like to use it before because it's it's kind of American based, so you need to be a little bit careful about how you use it. But I can go into that anyway. But I'm not being very clear today, but anyway, you go up to the
What's the name?
X apps. Just go show you where I am. Everybody knows this button at the top here, the X button, Exchange Apps. That'll open up a website exactly where we got BIM object before. And in here we have, you can type in, I think it's called, what's it called, framing. Timber Framing 2015, which is this one here. And it's free, so you can download it, but it will allow you to set up basic timber frames for any 3D model you've already made. It just does it like that. It doesn't mean they're right, but it means they're a start point. But you can control things like the overall geometry of it, the different types of beams and studs and everything within there, what happens over the window, what happens under the window, all those different controls you need. And you can set up a start point framing model that allows you to stud out the walls, but it also allows you to set up the roof. So you have, it also does a roof structure as well.
It's only timber, no.
You can change it to any type of beam you want. It's set up for timber mostly, but it doesn't mean you can't play with it, you know. But it does, what it does that's better than the overall or the standard Revit system is that it's actually designed to make your life a little bit easier, because it does like cuts on the ends of the rafters and so on. Whereas the standard system, you need to make a special beam for it or whatever. But it's all set up in here. So I would say if everybody downloads that, and then maybe I can go through that later as to how to use it, because it's quite useful for your current project, I reckon, some of them anyway. Okay.